Hey, everybody, it's BDF44. So, what I'm hearing is Ghislaine Maxwell has footage that she's recorded herself as a means of preparing for this day, more or less, of politicians engaging in sexual acts with minors. Um, I'm telling you, this is nothing short of monumental. If she does have politicians and celebrities or people of stature of some sort on tape doing these things, we're looking at something that's going to change the world. It's that simple. It's going to change the world, and I think it's necessary. We're in this space where we're dealing with the pandemic. We're dealing with all the justice conversations that are being had in our various communities, and I just look at this situation and I say to myself, boy, if we could bring down sex trafficking and all these child rings that are going on out here, just this all of this stuff, it would be great if we could have a real cleansing of that type of evil from our society. It would be, I think, amazing, especially if we can get some people out of prominent positions who have these agendas and these urges within them. It's very important that we cleanse ourselves of this nonsense. Children need to be protected. You know what I mean? I'm about as open-minded as a human being can possibly be as it pertains to accepting that people have issues that they cannot control or do anything about, and thus it not being their fault. I'm about as open-minded to that kind of thing as anybody. However, when it comes to preferences as it pertains to um, the violation of the rights of children, that's when I draw the line. Whatever you want to do with an adult is just that. As long as that adult is consensual and of sound mind, I could care less. I truly don't care. But once we start talking about people who are under the age of 18, sometimes even slightly older, to be honest with you, that's a benchmark that they have set. But it doesn't necessarily mean that the mind and the body is ready for that type of lifestyle or actions. I truly believe that it's one of the darkest and ugliest conversations that humanity has to have, and it's the pedophilia conversation. I have a theory, and that theory is pretty strong. I think pedophilia is about as common as homosexuality. I think people are dealing with this sickness to themselves. I do believe it can be passed from person to person based on childhood trauma of the sexual nature. It doesn't necessarily mean that 100% of the time when a person's molested or raped as a child or something like that, that they turn out to be uh, slightly warped. But I do believe that it lends itself to the introduction of sexuality as a minor. Not only from your perspective as a child, if you've been um, abused, but also as you grow older and how you equate children and sexuality. It messes you up for life. Having gone through those type of things personally, I understand that it really can mess you up for life having those experiences early on in your life. Um, and I think it's something that people are going to really, you can start to see the beginning conversations of people asking for tolerance from within that community. And my thing is, you have to protect children. It is our responsibilities as adults and as responsible human beings to assure that all children are given an opportunity to grow up independent of grown-up issues and grown-up desires. That's my opinion. I was raised by a loving mom who tried to keep my mind from being exposed to certain things as a child. She did her best, and it gave me an opportunity to have an imagination that was wondrous, that was hopeful, that was innocent. And even though I had experienced what I had experienced, I still was able to find comfort in my childhood, and that was so valuable because your emotions are out of control as a child. You don't handle your brain like you would as a seasoned grown up. The things that come with being heartbroken, the things that come with dealing with tragedy, the things that come with dealing with all of the different things that come to you in life are just magnified massively as a child and completely erratic. Um, and I remember feeling that way as a child. I remember how passionately I felt how deeply I would be hurt, how emotionally distraught sadness actually was in comparison to how it is now. I've been numbed out quite a bit in comparison. Um, and I think that's what life affords you. It's a gift and a curse that comes with age, that you are able to cope and absorb certain things more so than you would be as a child. So when you put children in positions to be involved in sexual activity, you're asking them not only to deal with the consequences of that sexual activity, but also the heartbreak that comes with being let down, having your virginity taken from you, having your body being used in that way is abnormal at that age. No matter how young we're talking, it's abnormal. It shouldn't be. You're putting them in positions to have sexual transmitted diseases before their bodies even grow up. You're putting them in positions to have children as children. It's just not something that we need to take lightly in comparison to other things that we accept in other communities that we embrace as who they are. This pedophilia conversation is something that we have to fight. We cannot just accept this like we do other means of sexual orientation. It's just not the same. It's not the same. And people who have this orientation, they need to respect that. Your desires and your actions toward children harm their lives. This is not gayness. This is not straightness. This is not grown people having consensual adult interactions. This is not that. These are kids, man. Lives are ruined before they even get started. When you introduce a child to sexual behavior with a grown-up especially, they shouldn't be having these sex with anybody, but definitely not with grown-ups. You know, and we're not going to even venture into the disturbance of the different types of people that are out here and the different types of things that these children have to endure when they're dealing with these type of occurrences in their lives. It's not minor, man. It's not minor. And so I stress this because I sense that we're heading into a space where this conversation is going to start to become more and more prevalent. People are going to really start opening their minds and hearts into venturing into this because they're beginning to now. And I'm just stating my claim right now. If something's against your control, if it's outside of your control, you need to go somewhere and isolate yourself so that you don't ruin people's lives. If you're a responsible, good, wholesome individual who's afflicted with this preference, you need to assure that you don't weaponize yourself against innocence. That's what this is about. In making sure that you are getting what you want, your satisfaction, or however you view it, you are potentially ruining people's lives. You know what I mean? And that's just the beginning of the conversation. Then you start talking about people trying to, it's just so disgusting, but the conversation is so necessary. So I'm just going to go ahead and talk. Child pornography and the damage that does to people's lives forever. Like just abuse caught on camera. It's so awful. And then the big business that this is in the underground, you know it's massive. If pornography is a multi-billion-dollar business, child pornography also probably is. Without any, I don't need to see the numbers to know that. It just is. And then you think about what's going on in Hollywood, the rumors about all of these different rituals and things of that nature. It's just, who is protecting these children, man? Then I look over at see what's going on with the president and the fact that several presidents have allowed children to be mistreated on their watch with this ICE program that they have going, this immigration program. You know, I was informed that it was Obama who originally put that in order for these kids to be in cages, and it doesn't change my opinion. Whoever put them kids in cages need to go face the judge for that. I would have liked for the Trump administration to take a different approach instead of carrying that forward. You know, if you're against Obama and everything, why the hell aren't you against him on that? So I plead ignorance as it pertains to stuff like that. I don't really know what's going on. All I know is that kids are locked up in cages. And it's not because of anything that they've done wrong, but it's because of who they are and their heritage, and by definition, that is discrimination. Um, you're not judging them by their merits. It's the very thing that everybody wants to quote Dr. King and talk about how great Dr. King's message was. You betray that every time you turn a blind eye to circumstances such as these, because he would have never, ever been okay with the way we treat immigrants, immigrant children in this country, if they're illegal. I'm sorry, we don't treat them right. It just is what it is. And you talk about the rumors that are going on with people in prominent positions, as we're saying at the beginning of the video. Miss Maxwell, whatever her name is, Ghislaine Maxwell, has this footage and this stuff. You hear about different prominent names, such as the Clintons involved in this. The Obamas have been mentioned in this. Several superstars, entertainers, and things of that nature. At some point, someone has to stop the noise and just focus on protecting the kids. That's it, man. Protect those who are not in position to protect themselves. Put those kids in positions to not have to deal with the grown-up experience, more or less. They will have an opportunity to experience all of that in their lives. They should not be forced to be objects of a grown person's interest and satisfaction. That is one of the worst atrocities I think that you could commit against a human being. I really do. It's one of the worst, if not the worst. So that's what I have to say. I really hope that we get to a point where we're not only just having the conversation about that this is going on, but how we can put ourselves in a position to help these children and remove these abusers from their midst. That's why it's really tough, because every time this conversation comes up, the easiest thing that everyone says is kill them. Like there's really not much of a conversation after that. People just get very, very, very angry and very, very, very violent. And to be honest with you, rightfully so. With that being said, I don't think that does anything to protect the children. If you find someone who's already done damage, do something horrible to them in their lives, all you're telling all of the other people out there is you had better not get caught. Not that you better stop doing this, not that you better get help, not that you would be wise not to harm a child because you're going to ruin somebody's life. Not, hey, there's somewhere you need to go to get the help that you need. We're not devising help for these abusers. We're not devising ways of trying to deter people from doing that. All we're doing is shoving them into the shadows even further, and thus making it so that they're unable to continue doing this stuff. Someone needs to protect the children, and I think a grown-up conversation needs to be had about how to do that. That's what I think. As someone who has been abused, a grown-up conversation needs to be had amongst smart individuals that are not looking to go straight to violence in response to this conversation. This conversation needs to be strategized. We need to have psychologists that specialize in this specific thing. And most importantly, we need to find a way through the legal, through wiggle room, to allow people to express this stuff without the fear of being turned in, because that shoves them into the silence, and that keeps them from getting the help that they need. Okay? That is what I've come to terms with. I remember I went to a psychologist once, and they told me, you can tell us anything, but if you tell us anything about harming a child, we will have to report it. Now, if I'm a sick abuser and I'm desperate for help, or I'm entertaining the idea of changing my nasty ways, you're essentially telling me that the help is not there. The place I go to get the help, I can't get it. That's what you're essentially saying. Because ain't nobody in their right mind going to admit to something like that and then risk having themselves turned in and going to jail and then have to register as a sex offender and all of those things. No one's going to willingly do that. Not a soul. And what you want to do is put people in a position to not be around children and to get the psychological treatment necessary. I understand, and I do believe that there is no cure for pedophilia. However, I also believe that if you give people ways and outlets, you will find people who will fight tooth and nail against their own urges to keep from turning into monsters. All they need is support systems and places to go where they won't feel like they're going to get their heads chopped off or tossed into a prison cell. It's not about whether or not they deserve to get their heads chopped off or thrown into a prison cell. It's about putting people in positions to no longer be around children to hurt them, getting them the help that they need, letting them get the outlets that they need to say what they need to say, to receive self-awareness. You know what I mean? All the stuff that psychological help does for human beings. You can't get that help if you're a sicko in that regard. And that's one of the biggest mistakes that we're making in our society right now. It's one of the biggest mistakes that we're making. Is telling all these sicko pedo guys that they can't get help at psychologist rooms, that they can't speak on what it is that they're dealing with, that they can't tell the truth without being threatened with jail time. That threat will keep them from ever telling the truth. It will keep them in the shadows. It'll keep them from getting help, and it'll keep our children continuing to have to experience these things, turning into these very same monsters. We need to have a grown-up conversation about this. I think that's where I'm at in my life right now. And I look around in society and I say, okay, we're making changes, but we're moving slowly. We're not having grown-up conversations. We're acting out. We're acting emotional. We're not sitting down and communicating. We don't have to be buddy-buddy, lovey-lovey, hold hands, kumbaya, but we do need to put our minds together and figure out how we're going to go forward and find solutions for our problems. Because not every solution is in a blade or in a gun. You know what I mean? You want to deter the behavior. That's the key. Kids are suffering in these households because these sickos aren't getting help. It's that simple. So let's grow up, have a real conversation about this, step outside of our feelings about what we want to do to people that harm children, and try to figure out a way to deter them from ever getting to that point. That's what we need to do. My name is BDF, and I'm out.